morning and welcome to Rising. We've got a great show for you today. It is a really big day, Lindsey, because we have these little things in the bowl.
I didn't even notice.
I don't know what these are, but it's just like a prop.
It's called Feng Shui.
Yeah,
right?
it makes me happy.
Minimalist design.
Yeah, major changes.
Yeah, we used to keep, this is a secret, we used to keep our caffeine, coffee, chocolate in there.
Oh yeah, where are we going to put those?
Now we got to put them way under.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's talk about what's on your radar.
If we must, we'll get to the news. Now, color me shocked, but the Republican majority in Congress might actually deliver on one of their legislative promises. And I couldn't be happier. The GOP is finally ready to defund NPR and PBS, two media products that receive generous heaps of government funding. In other words, you, the taxpayer, you and I, generously subsidize the journalism and entertainment produced by NPR and PBS, even if you don't need it, even if you don't agree with its editorial slant, even if you don't want it. A rescission vote, which would cancel out $500 million, roughly, in public funding, is expected to take place at long last, the culmination of Republican promises that money should not be confiscated from taxpayers and spent on educational programming that people may not need or want, or on a journalistic product that, even if its defenders have a hard time arguing, is non-biased. And yet, NPR CEO Katherine Maher, the final boss of wokeness, as I call her, is eager to shore up support for the feds continuing to take money out of your pockets and put it into hers. Now, she was on CNN recently making the case that our elected officials should protect her salary. Let's watch.
But I think that the place where we're seeing the most traction is senators who represent communities where there are large rural communities, large tribal communities, in particular in places like Alaska, where there just isn't a lot of other options. Broadband service is not universal, and heck, even cell phone service is not universal. There's a real understanding of the need there, as well as for emergency alerting, in which public media plays an extraordinarily important role.
Oh, please. Are you convinced by that? I'm not. Now, that's her argument. Taxpayers should keep subsidizing NPR because for some Americans, radio is the most convenient way to get the news. Maybe in some rare cases, the only way to get the news. Look, that might be true, but we're talking about a dwindling number of people. The internet is the future, sorry to break it to you. Technological innovation is making it easier and easier to provide fast, cheap internet all over the globe. Consider Starlink, Elon Musk's satellite internet service, which has been used to provide internet to war-torn Ukraine in the midst of that country being invaded by the Russian military. With each passing year, the areas of the world, let alone the areas of the U.S., that are totally disconnected from the internet, it's getting smaller. Trying to maintain government support for an outmoded means of getting information just doesn't make a lot of sense. Not to me. We wouldn't ask the American taxpayers to subsidize fax machines, would we? Again, I have nothing against NPR as a product if people want to pay for it, but it should be their choice, yours and mine, again. The reason some people don't want to pay for it, by the way, is obvious anti-conservative political bias, something CEO Katherine Maher has often denied exists at NPR. Here she was fielding a question about that.
As far as the accusations that we're biased, I would stand up and say, please show me a story that concerns you, because we want to know and we want to bring that conversation back to our newsroom.
That's coming from a woman who once tweeted that ideological diversity, i.e. allowing a conservative or libertarian point of view, every now and then, she said this, it's a dog whistle for racism and anti-feminism. And under her leadership, NPR constantly harped on the Russia collusion story, interviewing Democratic Representative Adam Schiff over 25 times. But when Russiagate failed to uncover evidence of collusion, NPR didn't give that outcome equal coverage at all. Then there was NPR's excuse for not covering the Hunter Biden laptop story. We don't want to waste our time on stories that are not really stories, and we don't want to waste the listeners' and readers' time on stories that are just pure distractions. That was their excuse. NPR should be free, of course, to make its own editorial choices about what it wants to cover. Ignore Hunter Biden. That's fine. That's your right. But I should be free not to pay for it and not to subsidize it. I say thanks, but no thanks, and so do millions of taxpayers like me.
You know, I have a lot of feelings about, and we hashed through this. People should watch our segment from earlier this week debating about PBS.
That was mainly about PBS. What about NPR, though?
I think that they both should stay on air. I think that information is necessary, and I think that you're thinking about NPR on a countrywide level, which I think we all have access to and understand from some of their most popular programs, but on a statewide level, the reporting is really accurate. It's really in the community, hyper-local, and really giving people the access that they need. I talked about the radio to you. Even though it's hard to kind of fathom that there are people that are still accessing radio as the main point of information, you have to just be aware that our country has different people here that have different experiences, different hardships, and so you don't want to take away access to information. I think that there are several Republicans that understand this. Well, there's 2 points. I think there are Republicans that push back about this bill as a whole because they said they don't fully understand what's in there and what cuts are being done. The government hasn't made that clear. So there's that. But then there's an entire other subset of people, GOP senators, that said that they sent actually a message to Russell Vought telling him, as the budget director, that they want him to explain how some of these funds maybe perhaps will be put. There's 10 of them that signed an open letter and said they want to know how these funds will be put towards educational programs. Right. So obviously they'd see the value in educational programming that may be pulled away in some of these hyper-local places. And so you have to remember that there are still people who understand the long-term effects of pulling educational and informational program from these kids, because obviously they're asking for after school and summer programs to be instituted, which I think, you know, when you pull away one thing, I asked you yesterday, do you think that Trump will replace some of this funding with actually handing out money to parents to go educate their kids or put them in summer schools that are helpful or help them have learning programs? And you said possibly, but I said I don't think that's realistic at all. So the fact that we have Republicans asking about those things is important, because I don't think you should take one thing away and not replace it with something that's equally beneficial if you want Americans to be on an equal playing field in education.
I can just think of 1,000. First of all, it's philosophical, so I don't want to force people to pay for an editorial product they don't agree with. I don't want to pay for this. If people want to pay for it, that's fine. Again, we're not banning the product from existing. We're just saying the compulsory government funding, which comes from you and I, should go away. If you want to pay for it, that's fine. So that's the philosophical dimension of it. The practical dimension of it is I can't be persuaded that subsidizing an outmoded technology is the best way to get information to these people. Don't we have to be aren't progressives forward thinking and technologically interested? If there's really not good cell phone coverage or internet being provided in some of these distant, in the middle of the desert of Nevada or something, why aren't we working on improving our infrastructure so that the internet and cell phone service, which is certainly going to be the thing you get your information from in the future, why aren't we spending that money to build out more infrastructure then so that people have that kind of coverage instead of, again, I use this example in my radar, but it sounds to me like subsidizing the fax machine.
I mean, I would love that. I think that the internet should be invested in a way that people that have less access should now make it extremely accessible. I wasn't aware that there were so many people that had lack of access to internet, laptops, televisions,
right.
or
I
a
don't
cell
believe
phone.
there are so many people.
But it came out when people, and I have several people that I talked to directly for these stories that are school teachers that said you would be surprised by the disparities at home for kids that can't access a cell phone or all these different things. And so it might be easy for you to say, yes, they can learn easily on their parent's cell phone, but if their parent works 2 jobs, and it was during COVID, we saw that kids weren't able to access information. And so it's a real issue that actually needs a real solution. And I wouldn't mind if we do replace, let's say, way information that's subsidized by the government was coming through to children or to adults. But I mind that there's no plan to replace it. I mind that we're just cutting funding for
Elon
PBS
Musk can beam
and
it
NPR.
onto the
So let's
front
do it.
lines of the battlefield
Don't suggest
in
something
Ukraine.
with DOGE and then delete a whole entire program but have nothing to replace it with. Elon Musk was there. These are cuts coming under his leadership.
Do you disagree that the product is ideological propaganda? What about these?
No, I disagree with that wholeheartedly. I disagree with you. I think that the NPR CEO is right to go on there and defend herself, because NPR has been an institution for decades that has provided real information.
I think if Fox News was asking for Congress to give them a subsidy, people of your ideological bent would not be happy about it. Next up on Rising, President Trump's DOJ is firing a prosecutor who was part of the Jeffrey Epstein case. We will discuss. Stay with us. Multiple outlets are reporting that President Trump's DOJ has fired former Jeffrey Epstein prosecutor Maurene Comey.
Maurene Comey is a former FBI director, James Comey's daughter. She also handled the Ghislaine Maxwell and Diddy cases.
Now, the reason for her purported firing is unclear. Earlier this week, Trump name-dropped James Comey when discussing the Epstein files. Let's listen.
These files were made up by Comey. They were made up by Obama. They were made up by the Biden information. Whatever she thinks is credible, she should release.
Meanwhile, in the House, Congressman Thomas Massie and Ro Khanna are leading an effort to force a vote on the Epstein files. The pair's legislation would require Attorney General Pam Bondi to make all unclassified documents, investigative material records, and communications that are linked to Epstein publicly available within 30 days of the bill passing. So far, 6 Republicans appear to be on board with the bill. This is notable because Massie and Khanna are vowing to start a discharge petition, which, if the majority of the House agrees to, will bypass House leadership and force a vote.
Trump blasted, quote, stupid Republicans who are falling for what he's calling now the Epstein hoax. Let's watch.
It's all been a big hoax. It's perpetrated by the Democrats, and some stupid Republicans and foolish Republicans fall into the net. The sad part is it's people that are really doing the Democrats' work. They're stupid people.
Stupid people. I guess
you know
that
what?
includes us because we also wanted the Epstein.
You know what? That's not right. If somebody calls you out, now they're stupid, low IQ, that's the MO. But that's the standard. We're used to that. I think, I love it. I love it. We finally have something bipartisan. Now I'm sad that it had to be this instance.
Yeah,
because
you love that Trump and Republicans
I
are
love
fighting
that there
about
are
this.
bipartisan measures to get something that Robby and I are both so deeply
Yeah.
interested in. I would love to know what happened here. There are serious implications to what Epstein did, and I want to know. But I think also that Trump is saying firmly he is not letting go of Pam Bondi. He is riding to the end of the world with her for some reason. And so he just found a fall guy, which was Comey's daughter. And I guess we'll hear more details
Bonding with
about
Bondi.
that. Yeah, he's bonding. They're locked in.
Yeah.
But I think, what we have to think about in saying the story over and over again is that there's like an irreparable amount of damage that has been caused to all the women and victims that are attached to Epstein. And the more that we keep saying this story, and not us, but overall, like people are like,
who are they? We want to know
like,
who they are.
well, that's part of the thing. I do believe strongly that I like the bipartisan effort. Now that I'm roped into the story, I'm interested in seeing what the steps are, even if part of it is petty because I like the infighting, but it still is. I am interested in that happening. But I do think that the women and the girls should be protected now because they went through and lived through traumatic experiences. And part of releasing the victims' names, not outing the victim. So we need to release maybe who was involved, but make sure that we protect the people that do not want to be a part of this circus.
Well, and that is the argument, although I appreciate what Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie are doing, the argument against forcing disclosure as a legislative package. I was seeing this, I haven't verified this myself, but Tim Pool, for instance, was saying the reason you shouldn't do it, and he's for disclosure, the reason you shouldn't do it as a legislative effort is that, well, they can't, would that compel them to release, presumably some of the Epstein files is what Bondi has claimed, and what we suspect to be true is that in that is what's called child sexual abuse material or underage abuse material that we don't want, pornographic photos and videos of underage people or anyone against their will released. Right. So we can't obligate or shouldn't obligate the government to do that. It might actually be illegal for them to do that. As you said, if people want privacy, they want privacy. Of course, that cuts against the idea of the whole thing. And I don't like then it gets into a little bit of a Me Too overreach situation where we are being told there's all this abuse and all these rich and powerful abusers and all these victims, but we can't give you any more information about that. You just have to trust us. Us being, I guess I didn't even know, just presumptions about it, which is not satisfying at all to me.
The thing that everyone's calling for is this list. So the list would be the names of the rich and powerful people in government or in business that were attached to the potential abuse of young girls. And so that is what you want to release.
But what if they were...
But we don't need to see the release of the names. If there are actually proof that there are victims' names and they're, vetted material, that's called just redacting information that's not necessary to the case. If we see information
but then, frankly, it's not fair to the... I am, in favor of due process and the presumption of innocence, so... this honestly does speak to something Trump said about this. Just because you're accused, Alan Dershowitz, the attorney for Jeffrey Epstein, was accused, but the woman who accused him, Virginia Giuffre, she's now deceased, she recanted that accusation. So she admits it was a false accusation. So if somebody's name is in there and then it was substantiated by law enforcement, okay. If it's just somebody's name is in there because they were accused by someone, well then... Well, I want to know who accused them and why, and so we can kind of cross-examine in the public square at least that person, or else it's not fair.
Access to these files, I'm assuming that this list wouldn't just be a list and be done with it. You can't prosecute someone because a powerful person wrote down your name on paper or in their computer. Right. I think the attachment would be the list, and then a list of information that attaches you to setting things up alongside Epstein that would be illegal behavior.
The list is not even a list. It's just thousands of files by law enforcement people about what they know. So there will be Trump is right about that. There will be names in there, and you won't go, oh my God, it's whoever, famous CEO or politician, whoever. But they were just like they traveled with Epstein. I don't know. This makes it sound like I'm thinking that I'm agreeing with Epstein with Trump, that it's a nothing burger. I don't think that.
Well, I think that's the problem. The nothing to see here approach is not working. The problem is not going away. But all I thought about last night was just like, okay, how can we push for this? And it can be bipartisan, and it's something that I do appreciate that they're moving forward with, but also consider that there are people that actually want nothing to do with this anymore and have moved forward with their lives, and we're making them relive this constantly when it's kind of become into some, I don't know, like it's past the point of the actual headline and now has become this back and forth that like has a life of its own. So I'm just trying to get to the bottom of what we would do with all the information and what exact information would be satisfiable, but also think that it is a good thing that there are people working together in Congress. Unfortunately, this is the issue, but I'm happy that they're working together.
I don't know. It's starting to remind me of, maybe I am genuinely changing my mind about this. It's starting to remind me a little bit. Do you remember the satanic daycare abuse panic thing? Do you know this thing from from the 80s, I think? There was this
oh my gosh,
totally perpetrated media hoax that that kids in daycares were being sexually abused and by a satanic cult, and this was in all these daycare centers, and it was part of the recovered memory movement. Because what happens if you interview, being a psychiatrist or law enforcement, you can interview a child for a long period of time and get them to say anything, because children basically want to give you the answer you want. I mean, that's generally just how interrogation works. So people were falsely accused. People went to prison for years and years and years for abusing children as part of this insane cult. It was all made up. It was all based in a incorrect view of psychiatry. Later, all the convictions have gotten thrown out or exonerated over time. It was a moral panic, a great example of a moral panic, like the real Salem witch trials type thing. I don't know.
But I mean, the goal,
feeling echoes of this
is
here.
the goal just to release it, and then are we trying to prosecute every single person that may be anywhere near the document?
I don't think we're trying to do anything anymore.
Yeah, I think Trump could have got ahead of this by just releasing more information. It could have been a little speck just to give people something. Like, this is all we got.
All I really want to know.
The fact that he's like, nothing to see here, I don't know why you're so obsessed with this, that is just fueling the fire.
All I want to really know now, I mean, obviously, if there are other people, important people who were accused credibly, I want to know. And I want to know why Jeffrey Epstein got such a lenient deal the first time around, why he was able to resume his association action in either U.S. or Israel or someone else. That's what I want to know. The rest of it, I don't know. And I don't even think we're going to get that. DHS Secretary Kristi Noem is teasing news that does make me quite happy. You can probably guess what it is, but we'll discuss it next. In another win for air travelers, they might no longer have to fret over the ridiculous 3-ounce liquid limit. Speaking at the first ever Hill Nation Summit, DHS Secretary Kristi Noem teased TSA liquid size changes in carry-on luggage. She spoke to News Nation's Blake Berman on Wednesday. Take a look.
But I will tell you, the liquids, I'm questioning, so that may be the next big announcement, is what size your liquids need to be. TSA is working on the technology that we have available to us if we deploy it correctly.
So it's just simply
that you can walk in, if you've got a carry-on bag, you should be able just to walk through their screeners, their scanners, and go right to your flight.
The move follows a week after the DHS announced passengers would no longer have to remove their shoes at security checkpoints for domestic flights. I know Robby is happy about this, so are people online. Radio host Dana Loesch took to X, posting, quote, "Hallelujah."
And independent writer Kristen Mag posted, quote, "Every time I go through the TSA line, I think about how I'm literally standing there just a few feet away from a bin that has been precariously filled with extremely dangerous confiscated liquids. So scary." Just kidding. What I really think about is how stupid this TSA theater is. Yes, that is obviously how I feel. I am just so happy about this. This would be a bigger deal for me than the shoes thing, because I often end up checking a bag because, I don't think I'm the most vain person on earth, or totally gotta do my makeup, gotta bring all my lotions and face creams and whatever, but I do, I hairspray and shampoo and things of that nature.
Let me find out you have a toiletry bag that's massive.
It's kind of massive. It's difficult. It's just inconvenient to get the little ones from the grocery store that are this big, and then they still confiscate them. So this would be a game changer. I celebrate and toast our colleagues, our Hill and News Nation friends and family who got her to reveal this.
Yes.
That is a great use of our reporting skills. So good job, Blake. Good job, everybody who put that event together. It was fantastic. I am so happy. So happy. Now, well, let's see if it happens. But to get her on the record as saying it's coming, it's an important first step.
Well, as someone who commutes here from
Yeah.
Denver, Colorado,
Yeah.
which is a long commute, the shoe thing
Not
really
for much
changed.
longer, hopefully.
Hopefully not. But the shoe thing changed my life. I actually am.
Shoe thing.
Yeah, like not having to take off my shoes, that was a huge deal. So when she said this, I was instantly happy. But immediately I thought about the fact of, okay, why are we doing this? It's not because we're trying to irritate Robby. Like, this is right after the 9/11 terror attack.
Government
but I want people to
projects
understand.
are designed to
No,
irritate
right
me.
after the 9/11 terror attack, people tried to sneak in, terrorists tried to sneak in liquid explosives into their bag, and that's why it was implemented.
Did they?
Because they were caught. Yes, I actually have the full story. So they tried to, on an American Airlines flight from Paris to Miami, it was just 3 months after September 11th, they tried to sneak liquid bombs in. And so that would be a problem, correct? That's something that could be an explosive device that's a liquid. So as much as I care about, protecting us and about my convenience, I care a little bit more about the feeling of safety and about nothing like this ever happening again. Are you jotting down a note for?
I'm going to share something with you that I'm not going to put, because I don't want to get this video get taken down. These are how you assemble an incendiary device after you're already through the airport security.
Okay, I just want to feel protected. If the feeling is most important, okay, it's the same way people want to feel like they have more money in this economy, right? They want to feel that way.
I want to feel like I'm not going to run out of sunblock by the end of my vacation.
It doesn't put you out that much to go there 30 minutes earlier. Everybody could work on time management and just go through security and get these checks. Now, I don't mind it, but I don't want to hear about not one incident where anybody even tried anything because our TSA decided to be more lenient, because Kristi Noem, out of all the things she has to work on, like understanding who all the leadership is in California as she puts in some over-the-top immigration policies, she has a lot on her plate. I don't know, the TSA and trying to change those laws is the number one thing. And she said, quote, the day I walked in the door, I started questioning everything TSA does. So that was her first and most important initiative.
This is making me love her more. Not love. This is
strong
step
word.
1. Step 2 is fire the entire TSA. That would be glorious. I would vote for Republicans forever if this happens under a Trump administration. I wouldn't, even my quibbling with the immigration policy, I would set that all aside.
All right, he's going on and on. Up next, Hunter Biden reveals why Democrats lost the 2024 November elections, because they weren't, quote, loyal to President Biden. We'll talk about that in my lens. Stick around.
I'm going to attempt to juggle these. That's how seriously I'm taking my job today, but I can't juggle. So instead of that, let's hear what's on your lens today, Lindsey.
I want to see the juggling. Okay. Former Democratic National Committee Chair Jamie Harrison is stepping back into the political arena with a new podcast as he and his party look to bounce back from losing the White House last year. And his first guest, none other than Hunter Biden. Now you may be wondering why or how this could possibly be helpful to the conversation. Well, Harrison told NBC this interview is an opportunity for folks to really get to know Hunter instead of looking at him as, quote, a caricature. He said, quote, when I look at Hunter and the conversations I've had with him over the last 4 years, this guy is really bright. He's smart. He's very passionate about the things in service, helping to people. He went on to note, quote, but you know, I only got a chance to see it because of my interactions with him. When you ask most people, they have no clue. All they know is what Marjorie Taylor Greene would say about Hunter, or what either political allies or his political opponents would say. Now, Hunter didn't mince words during his podcast interview, taking the opportunity to blame Democrats' election disaster on their lack of loyalty to his dad, saying, quote, we had the advantage of incumbency. We had the advantage of an incredibly successful administration, and the Democratic Party literally melted down. Now, I'll be the first one to say, Democrats could take a page from the Republican playbook on public unity and having private disagreements. But let's be real. It wasn't just about lack of loyalty to your dad, Hunter. It was former President Joe Biden's concerning debate performance against Trump last June that launched supporters into a scramble for a plan B. Not a sheer lack of confidence and loyalty to your father. An honest person watching that debate could not wholeheartedly say that the person we saw on that stage was prepared to run our country for the next 4 years. And let's not ignore reports that President Biden was, at the time, mentally preoccupied with Hunter's federal gun trial. That could have been part of why he seemed distracted while campaigning. But here's the harsh truth, Hunter. Your dad should have planned to be a one-term president. Then Democrats would have won the election. Not only would that have given Kamala more than 107 days to make her case, but a planned one-term presidency could have opened the door for other promising Democratic candidates to emerge and build momentum for a future presidential run. And while committing to a single term might feel like and appear like it's less powerful, in Biden's case, it could have allowed him to pursue a focused agenda without constantly being evaluated through the lens of re-election. It was also a missed opportunity to be a bridge to a new generation. Biden could have been a hero, a transitional figure, bridging the gap between younger Democratic leaders and avoiding the moment we're in right now, where so many diverse, capable candidates feel sidelined. And guess what? Right now, we'd be talking more about your dad's major policy achievements than about poor re-election strategy or his fitness to even carry on. Achievements like record low unemployment rates for workers of color and disabled workers and Americans as a whole, like expanding overtime guarantees for millions of Americans, or the fact that a record 21 million new small business applications were filed during Biden's term in office. Like I tell my Republican friends, you've got to move on. Stop obsessing about what went wrong over Biden's term, because the most important thing that went wrong was the fact that Biden ran for a second term.
Yes, lots of wisdom there, Lindsey. Very little I disagree with. I think you could make the case that excessive loyalty to Biden among his inner circle did him no favors. And now I honestly feel a little bad how much we, not us specifically, but everyone kind of in the media on both sides beats up on Biden.
You do.
Well, I just don't like being, I don't agree with his policies. I don't think he was a good president. I don't like being excessively cruel to him. I think the person in the office of the presidency deserves a little bit of respect. And he was put in a position, like an older family member who won't give up the car, who's not ready to move into a home, where excessive deference to their wishes did them some real harm. And I think that's sad, and I think that's an indictment of Hunter Biden, whose own behavior, he said, oh, people should have been more loyal to my dad. He was loyal to his dad in a very self-serving way, I think, because he wanted a pardon and he wanted his dad's support. He did try. I don't blame Joe Biden for this, but Hunter clearly tried to leverage his connections to his dad for financial benefits. I'm not saying anything came of that, but he certainly tried. And he got his dad into all sorts of embarrassing situations because of his drug problems and his personal life. And and people struggle with drugs. It's fine. People, I'm not trying to pass moral condemnation, but when he says that other people weren't loyal enough to, look at what you did to my dad. Well, look at what you did to your dad, man. Come on.
I thought it was a bad messenger and also a bad message. But I also want to stop the back and forth. I think part of it is that people won't just accept the reality. You take some L's, you win sometimes. You have to just accept that. But also, I think the Democratic Party won't step back and just look at the last few years. So, there was a huge cry in 2020 for something different. People were kind of over and exhausted by the chaos that ensued for Trump's first presidency, mainly because COVID came and people were flustered about the strategy and the ways forward. And so Biden, rather than, let's say, beating Trump in some sweeping win, it was more of like people were so done with that option that they went to a better alternative. And it wasn't because he was good, it's because he might offer stability or something to get us through the next 4 years that would be calming and leadership-like. And so I think that to miscalculate that's what people wanted twice, when we were fully out of COVID by the time that Biden was ready to run against Trump again, and then to switch to Kamala the last quarter, when there were people that had to be mentioning that, what's the plan here? I know ego tells you should run more than once, especially if you're an incumbent, that you have the advantage.
Yeah.
But just smart and looking at the field, journalism all over the place, understanding, reading the room tells you that wasn't a good strategy. So that's the frustrating part, because everybody knew what was at stake. Everyone who was complaining, everyone who goes as far as to call Trump a fascist and all these different names, apparently knew what they felt was at stake. And so for this to be the solution, for Biden to run again, and then switch the change when there was no other choice. After that debate, there was no other choice. It just was a loss, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So to switch 107 days out, to me, you provided no room for a real strategy to happen.
And the idea, Biden's poll numbers were so low. The idea that he was at some kind of competitive advantage, even Kamala Harris, who was not, I don't think, a terrific candidate, but Biden was certainly going to do worse than her. The polling was very clear on that. It would have to be there was no level of polling error that would possibly, in any universe, say that Joe Biden was in better shape than Kamala Harris. Incumbency is just not. Incumbency did used to be an advantage. I would argue for most of the 20th century in presidential politics, incumbency did provide some advantage. It wasn't an ironclad advantage, but it was an advantage. I don't think in our modern political era, incumbency is necessarily an advantage. Our media coverage is so partisan and so negative that I think even if you're a relatively successful president, you're going to get more negative coverage than you would have even 10 or 20 years ago. So I don't know that incumbency is an advantage. Also, can we, for just 1 second, talk about Jamie Harrison? Why is he doing this? I saw him.
What's wrong? Everyone's doing a podcast.
Well, yeah, and I saw him being touted. Is Jamie Harrison the liberal Joe Rogan? And I'm like, well, not if his idea is to rehabilitate Hunter Biden. I mean, contrast that with, for instance, Gavin Newsom, who started a podcast and has interviewed Charlie Kirk and Steve Bannon, and came off, I thought, pretty more likable than I thought of him beforehand. I think Gavin Newsom shows how to do this. Again, I'm giving credit where it's due. I don't like Gavin Newsom, but I think he's doing a better job in the podcasting space. Certainly than Jamie Harrison. Like, yeah, let's bring Hunter Biden back into the mix.
I think the thing is that people seeing people outside of the headlines and outside of at press conferences or outside of anything that's political provides a space for you to get to know people. It's almost like when you watch Michelle Obama and her podcast. Like, a lot of people have these assumptions about what's going on in her life or all these other things, but then you sit down and you feel like you're sitting at the table with her and you get to know her better. So I think it's smart for Jamie to do this. I think it's smart for him to bring more Democrats on, because a lot of people said they didn't feel like they knew Kamala. So maybe these are opportunities they can create before an election season.
Well, we'll be talking about Michelle Obama and Barack Obama a little bit later, but first...
Next up, we'll hear about the New York Times ex-Biden official border op-ed that social media is losing it over. Stay with us.
Well, social media is having a field day over a recently published New York Times op-ed penned by Biden's border czar, Blaise Nunez-Neto. The piece was titled, "I was one of Biden's border advisors. Here's how to fix our immigration system." And it's being ridiculed for what some are calling intrinsic contradictions. The official Department of Homeland Security account mocked the op-ed on X, writing, "I was Humpty Dumpty. Here's how to sit on a wall." That's a pretty funny one. Conservative communicator Steve Guest writes on X, "This is like an arsonist saying they know how to put out the fire."
In Nunez-Neto's defense, however, he did acknowledge that the surge in crossings during Biden's presidency was indeed a crisis. He admitted it. He also admitted Biden had swung the pendulum too far left by doing things like enacting a 100-day pause on most deportations. Nunez-Neto summarizes the gist of his solution, writing, quote, "We cannot solve this crisis without bipartisan reform. Congress should create an immigration system that is most generous to those who are willing to wait and use significantly expanded pathways to come here and work, and that is least generous to those who cross illegally."
Biden's handling of the border was a political flashpoint and a major headache during his time in office. One APNORC survey published during his re-election campaign found over 68% of American adults disapproved of Biden's immigration policy.
I'm not gonna lie. This was hilarious when the people were tweeting, the advice, good message.
Here's how to stay on the wall.
Good message, wrong messenger. Nobody wants to hear that right now, because you know what? There was a perceived open border issue no matter when and where Biden tried to fix it. And many states like Colorado, where I live, actually had local resources affected in a deep way, mostly because there was no federal help, right? Denver, and I understand the whole thing. With immigration, I really have an ear on the ground and am close to what Governor Abbott was feeling in Texas. He's like, listen, I can't deal with this. So if you want to be a sanctuary city, I will send the migrants to New York. I'll send them to Colorado. And so they were just everywhere that wasn't in his state, because he's like, you pay for it. And so the solution was like state against state. And I was in the middle of that crisis living in Denver, and then going from a pretty empty neighborhood to these are like real images where you're seeing like there's lots of people in your neighborhood just trying to make a living. And I interviewed them also, so I have empathy for migrants that have come here, understanding they're fleeing dire circumstances, and got on the bus because transportation was provided to possibly places where they would be accepted to work, which Colorado has become. But I do think that both parties are to blame, right? Biden waited way too long to try to do anything significant about immigration. But when he did do it, I don't think it was right of President Trump to jump in and try to stop that from happening before he became president.
Although Trump it's a fair enough point, Trump ended up being right, because he's like, no, we don't need this new law, we just need me to be president. And that turned out being correct, because then when Trump was president again, the border crossings went way down.
Right.
with minimal changing of legislation. It's Trump said, he was right about this. He said, my presence alone will solve this crisis. And
but most of Americans don't agree with the way that he's going about immigration, even though they like that the numbers are down. So they have
about the border crossing. They like how he dealt with the border crossing.
Right, but they don't like what he's
Maybe
doing
they don't
in
like
Los
with the
Angeles.
deportations.
They don't like the way that he's skipping over.
Some of them like it.
No, people like that if people are doing violent acts in any type of protest, that they are prosecuted.
Yeah, that's
everyone agrees to that. But I think the peaceful protests that were happening largely before our federal government got involved in Los Angeles was problematic for most people.
What's the protest about the immigration, not really the immigration policy itself?
Well, I just think in general, the way that Trump is going about it is very aggressive, and I think that we were told that these criminals were going to be stopped down, as opposed to every single American that's helping businesses that we all work for, and that Trump has himself used migrant labor. Yeah. So there's a long convoluted conversation.
Well, that's kind of the policy argument.
No, even how you feel about what we were talking about earlier, the cuts to the budget and how they're being formalized. There has to be a formalized process for migration, for asylum, for all that coming through our Congress. And so, yes, Trump said, let's not do it. But guess what? Now that you're president and you wanted everybody to wait until you're president because it was your most winning issue, then put something through Congress. There's still those same bipartisan group that wants to move forward.
Trump wants to do it. I mean, he's even said, he said, I don't want to use the word amnesty, but kind of gotta, the farm workers are gonna do something, but I don't want to use the word.
He has to learn how to lead with nuance. He has to learn how to not be so.
Republicans don't want that, and a lot of voters don't. It's a really unpopular. I mean, you say I probably don't disagree with you all that much on the immigration policy itself. What I think we should do is one thing, but I would never make the mistake of pretending that that's what most of the American people want. I've seen polls in every direction. I think a lot of people are, when you put it in a poll question, a lot of Americans, I suspect a majority of Americans, say, yes, I want them all deported. Then maybe when you show them what that actually looks like, well, that means police officers on every street. That means everyone getting stopped when they leave the grocery store to show their papers. That means major domestic surveillance. Then people will say, well, no, I don't want that. I just want all the illegal immigrants gone. Well, okay, but to facilitate that requires a growing of our government and a more muscular use of our police state. And then, not me. I'm law-abiding. I don't think this is going to interact with me. So that's the problem of public opinion.
It reminds me of stop and frisk in New York and how much of a failure that was. People were just getting stopped, and it was just deciding.
One of it was a failure.
I thought that was an absolute failure, and it also was very racist, and people were just stopping people because they looked like something.
Okay, but it can be racist and a failure are two different things.
It's a failure because if you're a person of color living in this country, you're feeling like all the Americans would feel that you just described. Like, oh my God, I'm getting stopped for no reason. I'm just trying to go to work. And so I think that these policies are not something
I oppose it because it was racist, but it might have been effective at bringing down crime.
No, I don't think it was effective because it put people in prison that never did anything wrong. Also in Rikers Island.
Didn't put people in prison that never did it. Well, I'm sure it did.
There were cases of people that
were stopped without probable cause, and I oppose being stopped without probable cause.
And then one of them committed suicide. Jay-Z did an entire documentary on it. So these are.
Well, they put you in prison because they're charging you with something.
Yeah, this is a long story about how that can go wrong. Well, how we know immigration can go wrong.
I was thinking about stop and frisk lately a lot, actually, because actually in my neighborhood in D.C., there has been a curfew imposed on 18-year-olds. People 18 and younger cannot congregate in groups, I think, larger than 8 or 9 past a certain time. Or it's from 10 o'clock to midnight or 9 to 11 or something, because there have been, all summer, there have been armies of teenagers setting off fireworks and rowdy and trashing the street and engaged in some real bad behavior, and so they've imposed this massive curfew.
I want to know. I want to talk to your neighborhood officials. What were they doing?
The police imposed it. I mean, I can watch it from my window. It's really bad. I don't know what should be done about it. Probably this is what should be done about it. It's really bad.
Well, going back to the immigration story,
but it's all black teenagers. So I don't know. The police, there's if there's a racist implication
rowdy,
to it.
Yeah, that's so.
They are being rowdy. I can watch them.
Right, but so are kids that are 18, right? I'm sure. Tell me what you were doing at 18. You were calm. You never had a drink. You didn't party with your friends in college.
Very well
you didn't yell.
Kid.
I don't believe it. So, but either way, with immigration reform,
going out into the street and behaving in a rowdy way.
With immigration reform, to go back to the point of this topic, is there needs to be Congress solving this, because every single bill, even the big, ugly / beautiful bill, that one is not making everyone happy. There are Medicaid cuts that even Republicans don't like, but then there are also tax cuts that they do like. So when we pass an immigration bill that actually lasts the test of time, people are going to be unhappy with some, they're going to like the other parts, but it's better than just carte blanche and Trump's team doing whatever they want and then most Americans feeling a little uneasy but happy with the results. Like, why don't we just come up with a formal, crystallized solution?
All right, up next, Barack and Michelle Obama are finally addressing those divorce rumors. We will tell you more about that. Stick around.
He took me back. Those are the words from former President Barack Obama as he poked fun at the rumors surrounding his marriage. Let's watch.
Wait, you guys like each other?
Oh yeah, really? Huh?
That's so
The
nice.
rumor mill. It's my husband, y'all.
She took me back.
Now don't start.
I can't.
It was touch and go for a while.
Barack Obama joined former First Lady Michelle Obama and her brother Craig Robinson on their podcast, IMO. The duo addressed those divorce rumors that emerged due to their solo appearances on various occasions earlier this year. Let's watch.
These are the kinds of things
Yeah.
that I just miss,
Mhm.
right? So I don't
Yes.
even know this stuff's going on.
Right.
And then
It's-
somebody will mention it to me, and I'm all like, what are
Yeah.
you talking about?
Yeah.
There hasn't been one moment in our marriage where I thought about quitting my man. And we've had some really hard times, but we have had a lot of fun times, a lot of adventures.
Okay, Michelle, clear it up. The former president and first lady discussed what, quote, being a man means and how young men seek the notion of manhood on social media these days. Let's watch that.
They're getting their parenting
They're getting their
online. They're
parenting
getting their
from-
notions of manhood from extreme.
Extremists.
Yeah,
Yeah.
extreme.
There are a lot of ways to be a responsible, respected, strong man, and you don't have to be rich, and you don't have to be
Yeah.
a professional athlete.
And you don't have to go find it on the internet
And-
among
correct.
a group of unclear influences.
I just love them so much. That made me so happy, the whole thing. No notes. No notes.
Yeah. Well, in terms of their marriage, yeah, I mean, good for them. I didn't actually think there was trouble in paradise, and
I mean, there was such a crazy rumor.
well, because she didn't come with him to either Trump's inauguration or Jimmy Carter's funeral, which just seemed
Which is allowed for a
well,
grown
certainly,
woman to
of
make a
course.
choice. Yes.
It just seemed odd for her to be at neither one of them, but she was noticeably absent, so people speculated what that meant, but it means nothing. I accept that. Marriage is tough, and when you're under the public eye and you face all the pressure, it's probably even tougher, but they're good and great. Happy for them.
I'm really happy she has this podcast because
No
it
issues?
felt like she
Are you?
bottled up a lot inside, and I noticed that from her first book when she went on tour. I know that she bottled up a lot inside. She wrote about it when she was in the White House. You know, she had to be very reserved and make sure, which is par for the course, right? You're in this public role. But I think that people want Michelle Obama to be a little more phony, to play a little nicely, and she's very direct and real. And I think that's part of the genuine quality that makes people like her. Like, she talks about, it's not all roses and fairies when you get married. It's going to get hard. Like, she says those things so people assume divorce. She says, I was uncomfortable making the choice to go to this event, so I didn't. And in any normal waking life, that would be completely acceptable if your partner, boyfriend, or even adult kid said, no, I'm good. But for Michelle Obama, it's like, oh my gosh. No, like, how close was her relationship to do any of these things? She's actually never wanted to run for public office herself. She doesn't have to attend political events. It's the right things to do for decorum, right? But also, the people who are judging her also likely voted for Trump, and they don't care about decorum, right? They like people to just be off the cuff and say how they feel. So this should be your perfect type of girl. I think she's doing exactly what you're looking for. She's being real.
I want to comment briefly on what she said there about role models for young men or manhood. I'm not sure what insights necessarily she was getting. What I gathered is she was criticizing like Andrew Tate type role models, which we all think are bad role models, so that wasn't really a very novel insight. I think Barack Obama is himself a perfectly acceptable role model for young men.
okay.
I don't have any issue with like listening to him. I don't agree with him. I don't think he was a good president. I think his policies are bad, but he's a fine person himself, if you're a young man, you could do worse than look up to him. But then the way she was describing, like, oh, they're on the internets and they're getting their ideas there. I don't know. It was a little too boomery for me. A little too.
Well, I think
we're all getting our information from the internet. She's an influencer. Don't disparage that lifestyle.
Well, it tracks.
That's you.
People take influencers for some reason as just like if someone posts, like if I post a workout video, like 10 things you need to do to get in the best shape. Like, what? I literally have no experience besides the gym that day.
We are
we
better.
There's people who study, your biology. They study your makeup and how to best work out for your body type.
They study their makeup?
Makeup, like your body's makeup, the way that you're made up. Like, so you are made up this way, so you should work out this way, right? If you have a more muscular build, you should do these things to accomplish these results. But now we just have people online that just have a lot of followers because they're cool or pretty or funny or engaging and like, oh, here's my advice.
We're no better than them, Lindsey. We're no better than them. We don't know anything. There's no credentialism in this industry. We are no better than the people that dance on camera for their millions of TikToks.
I am one
of
the people
then we're literally that.
Dance. Yeah. But I just think Michelle Obama is speaking from, I don't have an adult child. Michelle Obama has 2. And I think that they raised 2 pretty fantastic young women, right?
Girls.
Young girls that turn into women. You know what I mean? They've raised them well.
Not boys, though.
Oh, I said boys?
No. I mean, she was purporting to give advice.
Well, Barack Obama is a black man, so he understands what that looks like in America to have the bad role models. And that could easily happen online because you're so accessible. But you also could find good ones. So it just depends on what you're giving your kids access to, which is why you should give them access to PBS. And then they will get good role models like Big Bird. Easy.
Oh, God. I don't think we need any of that. No, it was interesting to see them together, and I'm glad things are going well for them. I don't have any malice toward them. They
very happy.
Can do their little podcast and have fun.
No notes from us. That does it for us on Rising Live. Look out for more exclusive content on YouTube coming your way later today. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe to The Hill's YouTube channel so you never miss any content from us. And for those of you who like to listen on the go, we are now available anywhere you listen to podcasts. See you next time.